everyone present that we are live streaming and videoing our meeting. And I will announce your name before you speak so that people know who has the floor. I would like to request that all mobile devices be turned to silent. And note that we have a full house. Everyone is present at the meeting. There are no leave of absences, no apologies, which is great. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement to country and in recognition of the deep history and culture of this place, Nipaluna, Hobart. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Muanina people, and lament the fact that the Muanina people didn't survive colonisation, but that the Palawa community, the Tasmanian Aboriginal community, continue to be really excellent custodians of this land and promote their identity, culture and rights. Okay, the minutes of our last meeting. Now, I've perused the minutes of the meeting and I have found them together with the item 19.3 as amended on the open portion of the meeting held on the 19th of March to be a true record of the meeting. So there was an amendment made to the 19th of March meeting. Would someone like to move those? Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Dutta. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Is the transfer of any agenda items? Anyone like to transfer any items? Being none, we will move on now to communications from the Chair. I do have a couple of communications. So I did want to note some artwork that we've been given. So this is from an artist called Quinn Sheng. Hold it up. It's a beautiful ink painting. With the yellow mountains or some of that in China. So basically, the story behind this, there were two artworks presented to Alderman Bloomfield on the 27th of April. Alderman Bloomfield attended the official opening of Ancient Charm and Splendid Colours, exhibiting the artworks of this Chinese artist, Quinn Sheng. The event was hosted by the Federation of the Chinese Associations in Tasmania and was held at Rest Point. Quinn Sheng is considered one of the best ink painting calligraphy artists in the world. His artworks display a very contemporary fusion style of Eastern and Western art and retain elements of traditional ink paint calligraphy that have stretched back 100 years. So Alderman Bloomfield was presented with these beautiful pieces of work and they're now here with the council, for the council to present in some way if we can find somewhere to put them up. The second thing I wanted to note was the Yellow Ribbon Road Safety Council. So this is a certificate of welcome that was received from the Safer Australian Roads and Highways to welcome the City of Hobart as a 2024 Yellow Ribbon Road Safety Council and thanks the council for our commitment to joining this. I think it was at our last meeting. So that was also received. And I also just wanted to note, for those of you who haven't caught up with the news, I wanted to note the passing of Tony Foster. Oh. He was the former Mayor of Brighton, passed away this morning after a short illness. He was Tasmania's longest Mayor and made a very significant contribution more broadly to the local government sector. So I'd like to just note that our thoughts and wishes are with Tony and his friends and family.
Lord Mayor, can we have a minute's silence for Tony? I think it's worthy.
Oh, okay, so if everyone would like to stand for a minute's silence.
was a Bolton supporter as well.
Okay, notification of council workshops. So there was a workshop on the 6th of May 2024 on the 24-25 budget. And I note that in the agenda that was circulated to us, there was an error in the agenda, and Alderman Bloomfield was an apology at this workshop, and this will be reflected in the minutes of this meeting. I also note both Alderman Bloomfield and Councillor Posselt attended a make-up workshop session on the budget on the evening of the 6th of May, and this will also be recorded in the minutes. And that was the only workshop that we had in that period. Okay, so item 6 is public question time. Are there any questions that we've received on notice?
No, Lord Mayor.
None received on notice. Are there any from the floor? Any public questions? There being none, we'll move on now to item 7, which is petitions. And I think the CEO does have a petition.
Yes, Lord Mayor. We received today from the Bicycle Network a petition calling for, so we asked the Hobart City Councillors to honour the Council's commitment in the Greater Hobart Cycling Plan for a AAA cycleway on Collins Street, and expect the tactical trial options to include separated cycleways. So that's been received.
We don't know how many people it's from, do we?
1,298.
1290.
Well, now move that goes to the appropriate committee.
Moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Dutta. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 8 is supplementary items. I don't think we have any. Item 9 is indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. Do any elected members want to note any conflicts for any of the items? None. We will move on now to item 10, which is the officer report about the Collins Street tactical bicycle infrastructure. Would anyone like to move this? Moved by Councillor Posselt, seconded by Councillor Lohberger. Who would like to speak to it? Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I welcome this really great change to mobility, arguably one of the biggest stepwise changes that we've had to mobility in our city in recent times. And it's in response to quite a number of strategic documents, as well as calls from the community to deliver a connected network of protected bikeways in Hobart to encourage more people to ride bikes, and to get those people who want to have a go out of their cars and onto their bikes, which means one less car on the road in front of everybody who needs to drive. Now, this particular intervention is 3 blocks from what we all know as the end of the South Hobart Rivulet on Mole Street down to Murray Street. And it's guided by the Greater Hobart Cycling Plan, by the Central Hobart Precincts Plan. It's guided by the Transport Network Operations Plan, and as we've seen tonight, there's strong community support for this, with a signature received to this effect of 1,290 odd signatures, as well as a wonderful community event that was held just yesterday with a couple of hundred cyclists, mostly children and parents with kids, and old people and people on all sorts of different mobility bikes riding down Collins Street together to support this terrific intervention from the city. And I'd like to thank the South Hobart community as a suburb, but also some of the organisers within South Hobart, with a special mention to Anna Blake and Ben Clark for their efforts and their continued work to ensure safe cycling within this city. Now, some of the rationale for this outside of the strategic documents includes empirical data, and I love empirical data. So we know that at peak, there are about 300 vehicle movements on Collins Street between Mole Street and Murray Street. And what we also know is there is about 150 bicycle movements at the same time. Now, at present, vehicles have 4 lanes of traffic, 2 for parking, 2 for movements, and bicycles have nowhere to go other than the footpath or on the road, which is not necessarily safe or protected, and it does upset drivers from time to time. And yet we see 50% of all vehicle movements are bikes in this corridor. So I think it's really important that we deliver this piece of infrastructure. And tonight all we're asking for is for endorsement to go out for public consultation to hear more from the community. And I would encourage anyone who rides a bike, anyone who wants to see action on climate change, anyone who has kids that ride bikes, or even those people that get stuck in traffic, to write in support of this intervention, because it will reduce congestion. Every one of those bikes, those 150 bikes that move in peak through this corridor, is one less car, because South Hobartians have to access Macquarie Street to get into the city if they drive. That means 150 more car movements in peak hour if we don't encourage and facilitate the uptake of more cycling. And what I'm really excited about tonight is that I think that we're going to get pretty close to unanimous support on these bike lanes from the elected members, because I know that during the election campaign we were asked to provide statements to the bicycle network about our position on bike lanes. And obviously I was a big supporter, but just moving through the submissions as I have them here, Councillor Kidsos said, one of the first projects which I will bring to the council is the development of a cycling link to the CBD along Collins Street, the missing link that will safely connect South Hobart Rivulet to the CBD and the inner city cycleway. Councillor Elliott says, I believe in supporting more people to walk and ride by providing infrastructure that makes this safer, more efficient and more enjoyable. And specifically, she goes on to say that the creation of connected cycleways in at least 2 directions so that bikes and e-scooter users can cross the city more safely. For example, from the Rivulet track through Collins Street to Campbell Street and along Campbell Street from Davey to Melville Street. And I know Councillor Elliott is a strong advocate for safety on our footpaths with scooters, and these bike lanes do get scooters off the footpaths. Now, I do know as well that... If I can ask for an extension of just 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Moved by moved by Alderman Zuko, seconded by Councillor Dutta. Did you want 2 minutes or 3 minutes? 2 minutes. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously.
Councillor Harvey says that bike lanes will also solve the issues with e-scooters on footpaths and will also be appropriate for other mobility devices. Alderman Bloomfield says that she supports a full circuits of bike lanes. That is, you don't find yourself riding along to discover that the lane ends and you're back in difficult traffic. With reduced traffic, it will be easier to install bike circuits through the suburbs and the CBD. So, we have really strong support on this council for safe cycling infrastructure. I know that we have very strong support for action on climate change, but it's a little bit more than that as well, isn't it? Because we're delivering new outdoor dining spaces for a cafe precinct with multiple different cafes in that stretch. And we've recognised that reallocating this road space to other uses is so important. And that's why for a very short section, the bicycle lane actually turns into a shared zone to facilitate that parklet, that outdoor dining space, because the officers recognise that in that particular location, the best use of that space is an outdoor dining space. So this is about reallocation of road space to all users so that everybody gets a fair go, and it's not just about cars, because if we only build for cars, that's all we're going to get in this city is rows and rows of cars. There will be no vibrant city. There will be no people taking active transport. There will be no people catching buses. So let's get on and support this. And once again, thank you to the community, and in anticipation of a strong vote tonight, thank you to the councillors for getting on board, and thank you to the officers for putting it together.
I think Councillor Elliott was up first.
It's a long way.
Still up now, so Councillors.
Okay.
Alderman
I only
Zuko.
want to question, if I may, Lord Mayor, through you to Councillor Pasalt, and thank you for that information. Councillor Pasalt spoke about 3 elected members and what they stated. The question I'd like to ask Councillor Pasalt, in the information, I haven't got the information you have got. Did any of those 3 elected members mention that they wanted to specifically have 2 lanes of bike lanes in Collins Street in a specific area in their submissions?
Councillor Posselt, would you like to
Thank you, Alderman Zuko. Specifically, Councillor Elliott stated that the creation of connected cycleways in at least 2 directions so that the bike and e-scooter users can cross the city more safely.
Talking about Collins
Yeah, I
Street
think
in that
he's-
specific
yeah.
area. Yeah.
For example, from the Rivulet track through Collins Street to Campbell Street. So yes.
No,
On
that's
both
wrong.
sides?
That's wrong.
I've
I
read
asked that question.
The quote is creation of connected cycleways in at least 2 directions so that the bike and e-scooter users can cross the city more safely, for example, from the Rivulet track through Collins Street to Campbell Street and along Campbell Street from Davey Street to Melville Street.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. Just to clarify, no, that isn't correct at all. I did not intend
Sorry.
to have
I don't know how that happened.
2 directions, both sides of Collins Street at all. That is an excessive proposal. My intention was, and when I met with Alison Hetherington, as a family that has a lot of bike riders in it, not me, I do believe we need to have some pathways across in 2 directions. So, for example, down Collins Street, up Liverpool. There is no way on earth I would support, and there's no way on earth tonight I'll support Collins Street bike lanes on both sides. But more importantly, I'm a bit confused because Councillor Purcell's referred to this project as being one of the biggest steps of change around transport, yet we have the transport strategy still out for feedback. So we're considering this huge step for change on transport while we're currently asking the community for their feedback on how they want to move around the city and what their needs for parking is on the city. It really doesn't bode well in terms of the genuine nature of our consultation if we're forging ahead tonight with one of the biggest steps for change while we're asking the community what their transport needs are and what their parking needs are. It really reflects poorly on terms of, and we've got a lot of reputation building, to be honest, to do in terms of the genuine nature of our consultation, and this really flies in the face of that. So, first of all, on that point, I think it's really important that we don't put the cart before the horse, and I'm going to move a motion for deferral that this be considered after we have the transport strategy finalised, because otherwise it's really embarrassing us from the perspective of genuine consultation. So that's a motion for deferral.
I'd need a seconder for that. Alderman Bloomfield. So that's a procedural motion. So we'll vote on that immediately without debate. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. No. So show of hands, all those in favour?
Zuko, Elliott, Coates, Bloomfield, Kelly, me, and the noes. Okay. Salt. Oh, sorry, Dutta. I missed Mike. Apologies. Kitsos, Lohberger, Harvey, the Deputy, and the Lord Mayor. So that is...
Okay, so it's lost. Did you want to continue, Councillor?
Yes, thank you. So I do absolutely support bike lanes, but it needs to be a balanced proposal. And as I said when I met with Bicycle Network, I can't remember what they're called, sorry. But yes, I support bike lanes, but when the parking that is lost is offset very nearby. And that is absolutely not happening in this proposal with the loss of 59 car parks. I also don't support, and I wanted to ask a question to the relevant officer, please, as to why the speed limit in this area would be 30 kilometres, when I think on Campbell Street we have bike lanes with 50 and 40 kilometres adjacent. So I just want to understand why 30 kilometres.
Through you, Mr Vidal, did you want to speak?
Yeah, through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, good question. So obviously lower speeds and where bikes are still interacting with traffic, so there'll be points at intersections and things like that where bikes will be interacting still with traffic. We want to create a lower speed environment. The current speed environment is 39 k's down and 36 k's up as the 85th percentile speed. So we want to take the opportunity to lower the speed environment in that space to make it safer for all people in that space.
Thank you. And one more question, and sorry if I haven't missed it in the report, but I'm also concerned about the removal of the right-hand turn out of Victoria Street, and I watched the traffic today for over an extended period of time to see about the usage of that right-hand turn. Have the council got data on the number of right-hand turns?
Yeah, we do. Yes, the overwhelming number of right-hand turners out of Victoria Street onto Collins Street, then turn right onto Harrington Street. That's overwhelming volume. So by creating a right turn out of Centre Point car park into Harrington Street as the replacement movement, you capture, I think, 90% plus of those movements.
Okay. So I'm not sure I quite follow that, but if you can't turn right, how can you get to Harrington Street?
Victoria Street.
Turn right out of the car park. Sorry.
Oh, right, we're going to come out of Centre Point that way.
Yep.
Change the...
That's right.
Right, okay. Right, I missed that part. Okay,
We want to
thank
make
you.
it easier to get in and out of Centre Point car park, which is a really...
That'll be back to 2 lanes. Right, okay. Thank you. That
You're
alleviates that concern. Thank you. So my main concern with this is that it's not just for engagement. It also goes on to detailed planning work. One final question. Do we need to do the detailed planning work before we can go to engagement? I would have thought that the diagrams that we have are enough to go to engagement.
Mr Vidal?
Hi, mate. Yeah, thank you through you, Lord Mayor. So we have been communicating with businesses for the last over a long period of time, but in detail over the last 3 or 4 weeks to get us to this point. But we don't want to stop there. We want to continue the conversation with those business owners, business operators, and other users of Collins Street. So as we continue to refine, we want to continue to make sure that the treatments are appropriate for those businesses. For example, if we've got some, which we do have plenty still on-street car parking on Collins Street, we want to make sure that the time controls are right for those business needs, and we want to make sure we maximise those important curbside needs for things like loading zones, DDA accessible parking bays and the like.
I think that was, in the motion as I read it, the recommendation, it reads as if it's simultaneous work on detailed designs while engagement's also happening. So I'm just conscious of us investing in detailed design while we haven't completed the engagement. So...
Right, through you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, so apologies. Yeah, the detailed designs will be informed by the finalisation of that engagement work, yes.
The detailed design won't happen until the engagement's complete?
Correct.
Okay. So, I mean, all things considered, I think I support bike lanes, but I do think this proposal is excessive in terms of the removal of the parking. I note the lower occupancy rates that are quoted in the report in the surrounding areas, but that actually wasn't comforting to me at all in terms of the low parking occupancy. Makes me wonder why aren't people coming to our city? And I'm actually concerned that this will worsen that situation. Today I had a couple of chats with a few businesses along that area, and they are not welcoming of this proposal. They were retail places, not cafes. I certainly don't support more parklets because the ones we have are already grossly underutilised. So unfortunately I think this proposal is excessive. I would welcome something more so like the use of Collins Street on one side, following down with the traffic and then returning back another direction, but I think annihilating a big chunk of parking from Collins Street really hurts those traders and the community in that area. So unfortunately I won't be supporting this proposal.
Further discussion? Councillor Kitsos?
I can hear tonight from elected members that there's concern about the timeline for this rollout in relation to the transport strategy. And I'd like to put a question through you to the officer, if I may, to make some clarifications around what a tactical implementation of this actually means in terms of what infrastructure is provided and how that may or may not interrelate with this issue with the timeline.
No worries. Through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, it's a good question around tactical. So as you know from obviously reading the report, the proposal for the infrastructure is tactical infrastructure. The benefits of that are twofold. A, you can get on and do it quickly, and B, you can then adjust it as things become apparent. So things around safety issues or any unintended consequences, if any of those arise, we can then adjust accordingly to do so. As part of this proposal, we're planning to put this in for 24 months.
Can I ask a follow-on question to the officer? Just in relation to community engagement and business engagement and the tactical implementation, if there were strong recommendations from the community to amend a portion of this tactical infrastructure, is that something that we'd be able to accommodate?
Through you, Lord Mayor, of course, yeah. So we do want to get feedback. Again, part of the benefits of doing a tactical, adjustable installation is you can then adapt to needs as they arise. We do have specific metrics as to what success looks like. So they're the processes that will be guiding what success looks like and whether we'll be adjusting.
Look, I think this is a really strong design, and I think that the community have demonstrated over and over again that this is what is required. It's an absolute vital piece of infrastructure to get into the CBD from those in South Hobart. I did participate yesterday in the community ride hosted by South Hobart Sustainable Community, and I have to say it was tremendously exciting to see people from 8 to 80 years old turn out to ride in support of separated, protected, safe cycling infrastructure. If I may quote someone who provided feedback into what this means to them. They said they offer safe and enjoyable riding experiences, and they will encourage many more people to ride in and through our city. From my perspective, active transport solutions are such an amazing, easily achievable outcome for our community. As a healthcare worker and health professional, I know that we are always having problems with our preventative health measures within our communities, and we need to look at reducing our risk factors for cardiovascular disease and stroke events. And by providing these kinds of active transport facilities for our community, it means not only improved health, physical health, but also improved mental health outcomes. So I really welcome this, and I'm a strong supporter of this proposal tonight.
Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Council. Look, normally I'd be really behind this one. As you know, I was very proud to do the polypedal as a councillor for City of Hobart and rode down the east coast of Tasmania for diabetes, and I agree active transport and bicycle riding is very good for a whole lot of reasons. But I guess, you know, this is unfortunately one of these instances where councils found themselves in a situation where we're just sort of doing this project, in my view, in a little bit of isolation, notwithstanding all the work that I know the officers have put in. But the problem for me is that Transport Tas are currently doing the Southern Transit projects, and I mean, you can just Google their webpage. Part of this includes improving Macquarie Street and Davey Street for buses, cyclists, pedestrians and general traffic. They're currently partway through their process. As of mid-April, they've just installed new clearways on Macquarie Street and taken away car parking. Their maps for upgrades to Macquarie and Davey include dedicated cycle lanes and also include cycle parking bays and cycle boxes, they call them. I just, you know, to me, I can very much appreciate if you want to get from South Hobart into the city, it's nice to have a dedicated cycle space. That's exactly what they're doing on Macquarie Street. Macquarie Street is becoming, and Davey are becoming, the transit lanes. That's what the Hobart City deal talks to. That's what their project website speaks to. They've just taken away car parking on that street, and then we're proposing to do the exact same thing one block down. Look, sometimes you've got to do these things and it doesn't work and you go back to the drawing board. It may well be that the Macquarie Street doesn't end up working, and people from South Hobart just don't like using that extra lane. But in my mind, we should genuinely let that project have an opportunity to stand on its 2 feet. And it may well be that if you want to get from the southern suburbs, the greater southern suburbs, might even be Holman's Hill or further, into the CBD, you know, at the moment it's what, 4 or 5 weeks old, their proposed plan. So people may not even be aware of it yet, but they are making changes and adjustments to Macquarie Street. It's 1 block up from Collins. It's being designed to provide for these transit links. It says it on their project plan to improve for cyclists. So I just, you know, I can appreciate if you live in South Hobart or you live in Holman's Hill or you live in Dunedin, it's, you know, you want a safe way of riding your bike and getting into the CBD, but I just feel like the state government's doing all this work on Macquarie Street, and then we're sort of proposing to go out to community consultation and propose going down this path. And then in amongst that, as we've just heard, there's also an overarching transport strategy. So, you know, if you're a member of the community, who do you give a consultation to? On what project? Or what, you know, stage are we through? So I just think, look, I very much agree with what they're trying to achieve, but I sort of fear that it's being done for them already. And, well, not fear, I feel that it's being done already. So, look, I would just remind the council that we have signed up to those changes. Part of the city deal was to get that transit options there. Part of that is including safety and access for cyclists into and out of the CBD. You know, I just at a certain point, You don't just need every single street having access for cyclists, you need to put cyclists down dedicated spaces and lanes where people will expect them. And ultimately, I think Collins Street is 1 block away from Macquarie. Macquarie is where they're already doing work now. As of new clearway and parking, as of Monday the 15th of April, they're installing morning and afternoon clearway conditions on Macquarie Street between Gore and Mole. So, you know, I just think we need to let that process run its pace before we sort of start advocating for new plans and new processes. Yes, it might mean delay, but there is work already happening, and for the cyclists that want to commute in from Tolmans Hill, from Dunedin, from South Hobart, from Kingborough, you know, let's give them an opportunity to make that a very successful transit corridor. Thanks.
Councillor Harvey, have you guys questions? Or?
No, I'll just have a go. Lord Mayor, the most common sentence you hear whenever we have a bicycle thing come to council is, I support bikes, I support bike lanes, but it's always about, I support them, but not this one. And I don't know how many times we've heard, every time, I do know how many times we've heard it. Every time there's a bike lane proposal, bike infrastructure, supported, but. And the but is really incredible from Councillor Coates at the moment, because he wants to forget about Collins Street, which is a thoroughfare, which is potentially a great bike lane, and suddenly talk about Macquarie Street. So I'm not sure what the connection was there. There's something going on Macquarie Street, so let's drop the Collins Street one. But anyway, Collins Street is the obvious choice for a bike lane. It's an obvious choice for a bike lane either side. It's called out in the Hobart Central Plan as well that we're going to do this. But I will read out the recommendation, which kind of answers everyone's question, I think, with regard to putting the cart before the horse. The council endorsed the concept plan for tactical bike lanes on Collins Street between Mole and Murray to proceed to further project communications and engagement. So we've got a starting point for this, and we're going to continue the engagement process to help inform future plans. So that kind of answers all the questions around the room about putting the cart before the horse. We're not. The horse is well and truly, you know, in the right spot. Following implementation of the above recommendation, an engagement summary report will be provided to the council for consideration and approval, sought for the installation of the Collins Street tactical bike infrastructure. So more engagement, detailed design, then it comes back to us again, where everyone can say the same thing over. I support bike lane, but we know what's going to happen tonight. This should get past at least 7-5, and we can continue to build the process with this, what I think is an incredibly important part of the bike infrastructure in Hobart. But I did want to have one little anecdote. I wandered down Collins Street last week, and there's some really lovely trees, a bit wonky outside, inspiring place. And because I was walking, I was fortunate to see a little flock of spotted pardalotes, which I've never seen before. I've heard them, seen them in the distance, but never seen them. Little flock of spotted pardalotes on the footpath in the driveway. And then, looking into the tree, there was a flock of silver eyes flirting with a bunch of fantails. So these are 3 little birds that are really important little species in Hobart, all in the one little section of Collins Street. If I was driving, I wouldn't have seen those birds, but because I was walking, I heard them and I saw all 3 species. If I was riding a bike, I would have heard them and I would have seen them again. So driving cars, you miss things. You go too fast, you miss what's going on in your city. So I was really engaged in Collins Street, not on a bike, not in a car, but by walking as well. So to have a quiet, calm street, 30k an hour is perfect for shared spaces like Collins Street will be. Makes it safe for cars, makes it safe for people, and you might get a chance to see really beautiful little birds on the street as well. So I'm fully supportive of the process here, that we look at the tactical bike lanes in relation to an engagement process and a communication strategy, and then we come up with something sensational, like we've already got the starting point for. And as I think Councillor Coates said, what if we don't like it? What if the community says something, and can we change it? Of course we can. It's a tactical approach, which means things can be shuffled and moved around. They're not permanent, and they'll be in that temporary condition for, 2 years? And then after that, we'll decide whether or not they become permanent.
but I'm hopeful that this will be incredibly successful, that it will be well ridden by a lot of people, and judging by the petition we had today, which was 1,200 signatures, all supporting the Collins Street proposal, and also we had 100 and something, how many people rode yesterday? 150 people rode along that section to give their support to council proceeding with this. So all of those around the table who are in that category of I support bikes, but please consider the option here that this is an opportunity to support something that's really popular and will be a successful project, I think, down the track.
Can I just ask a couple of questions? Sorry to interrupt people speaking, but I did want to just clarify some things from Councillor Coates' intervention. Because I think it's important, and I think, yeah, the council did have quite a bit of input into Macquarie and Davey, and we didn't get exactly, I think, what we wanted. But can I just, because it did suggest that professional officers may not sort of have engaged with the state government, but can you clarify whether the Greater Hobart Cycling Plan 2021 and the Greater Hobart Transport Vision, is that a document that local and state government have worked on together? And two, do those documents identify Collins Street as the preferred safe bicycle route from the south of the city into the city?
Yeah, through you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, to answer your question, yes. So those two plans were, and they are co-authored by the state government and council. Importantly, Collins Street is identified as the core strategic cycling corridor in both those plans, as well as the Transport Network Operations Plan, where it is the strategic bikeway from the south into the city. Macquarie Street, under the proposal from the start to now, has never and will not have any bicycle infrastructure on Macquarie Street. There is a small section of Davies Street between Sandy Bay Road and just up the hill there, where there's a small section that's been retained by the state. Yeah, Barrack Street, retained by the state, and that's to sort of close the connection off. Apart from that, as part of Macquarie and Davies Street, there is no other cycling infrastructure, as it is not neither of those are strategic cycling routes as part of those plans.
I thought that was the case. And just to clarify, the state government not only supports this project, but they're actually putting the funding into it. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we've been given, and we've given in principle support for the funding request that we've made. So we're waiting for that final, hopefully in the next week, funding agreement for that. It's certainly part of the state government's plans as well. Absolutely.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I think a lot of my questions have already been answered. That's okay, in the few questions that you asked. So I suppose it just left to me to highlight a few things, as you've already mentioned, that Collins Street is identified as a strategic walking and cycling route, and it's been jointly developed by the Department of State Growth and the City of Hobart. And once again, to reiterate, we have that in principle support with regards to the funding. One thing I do want to also highlight that was contained in the report is that the Inner City Action Plan, which actually was produced in response to the 2010 GEL Architects report, actually also suggested cycling infrastructure as part of Collins Street, and it's actually the final remaining recommended project from the ICAP that's yet to be implemented. So I think it's really wonderful that we have this here today. And really from that report, it was titled Hobart 2010 Public Spaces and Public Life, a City with People in Mind. And I think this really does that. It puts people at the forefront and makes them the focus. When we are also talking about parking, I note in the report, it says that there's removal of 59 parking bays between Mole Street and Murray Street, with 27 bays retained. The report also does highlight something really significant for me when we're talking about removing and then having some retained. So now we ask ourselves, well, is there more parking available? And if we look at the report, it says at 6.2.3, existing off-street supply and demand, there are 1,843 off-street parking bays within 200 metres. 200 metres of the project. This includes 782 available at Centrepoint car park, with weekday peak occupancy at approximately 83%, which really means that there's 130 spaces available. So yes, 59 may be removed along there, 27 remains, and then there's 130 available when we're talking about this peak time, which I think really needs to be highlighted. I do also want to discuss the issue about this consultation. I do recall when we had various different things, for example, in Salamanca, we did things on a trial basis. And I think it's really wonderful that we as a council put things at a trial basis, and this is just one of those things for 24 months, as I understand. But they'll also be monitoring it. Ongoing monitoring and evaluation, both pre and post installation, is planned to enable measurement of project impacts. And the following metrics, it's all listed there, from the number of bikes, micromobility, diversity of users, increased access, road safety, user confidence, all of those things. And they'll actually be doing that at the 1 month, 3 month and 12-month stage of the project. Which I think is really, really important. I too actually, at various different days in the weekend and then also on a weekday, went and had a look at Victoria Street just to understand with regards to it being 2 ways. And I think it's a brilliant idea. Because rightly so, as you've pointed out, people turn right onto Victoria Street. I do the same. And then turn right onto Harrington Street as well. So making that 2-way, I think, is to accommodate for that is also really great in terms of managing that traffic you're talking about. So I'm really glad that this has come to us today, and I do want to remind people as well that once again, to reiterate, that this is actually part of that ICAP, and it is, with that in mind, it's actually focused on a city with people in mind. Thank you.
Alderman Bloomfield.
To point out is, for all this discussion today, we really haven't mentioned Pillar 4, which is the city economy, which is about supporting small business and ensuring that Hobart is a place where entrepreneurs and businesses can grow and flourish. I'm not going to see much flourishing with this particular design and plan. I'm also amused to find that 150 people engaged with your bike ride, but well and truly more than 150 people attended the Million Paws Walk, where I attended, up in the Domain. So it really is context what people are prepared to engage with and what people are able to engage with. Now, I have a few things to mention here. One of them will start with Victoria Street alteration. I've had numerous complaints. The understanding is from a number of people is they feel that it won't work without more parking being removed, but that's not included in the plan here at all. And in fact, I have quite a detailed assessment here suggesting that people emerging from Victoria Street, trying to get into Collins Street and so forth, they already struggle to get in there. It already gets blocked at peak time, particularly at Christmas. They already have to call the police to ensure that we actually get cars moving in and out of that car park, that this will actually make this worse. So I fear that if you remember what happened with Argyle Street when we made changes there, and there were up to 4 hours worth of waiting trying to get out of the car park, I don't want to see the same, because we didn't contemplate it properly this time either. So that, I believe, needs more work before we make change. The other parts I am concerned about, and I do actually have a question. What is the cost? What is the cost for, the income foregone, therefore the cost to council, for losing 59 car parks? Because my estimation, it may well be up to $500,000, and we just lost, 100 car parks also paid? And how much do we lose there? So how much money are we giving up in income and revenue to council on an annual basis? This isn't going to be covered by a grant, by this development. Can I please have an answer to that?
Mr. Vidal,
yeah, through you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, it's a good question. So as you know, we're just thinking that the parking will be displaced and moved elsewhere, so we're not anticipating any net change in parking revenue.
That's quite a bizarre answer. We're actually physically removing an asset and assuming the return on investment will be greater.
What's the point of order?
I can't speak to staff answers like that.
Huh?
You can't call a staff answer bizarre. It's from staff.
I think it's the point of order is around whether it would be offensive.
Yeah, offensive.
So
Offensive to
I
the
think
staff.
it is a little bit if you wanted to think about how you
I feel
framed.
it's quite factually incorrect. How about that?
That's fine.
Okay.
I didn't want to say that, but that's what I'll say. I believe that you cannot infer the return of investment of an asset will increase on one side when you physically remove another one. Because the net change will be that we have less people overall. We actually have had no assessment from the scramble crossings to this day of the net deficit in parking in the multi-storey car parks to know whether or not we actually have less people in town. And yet here we make another change, we're removing more assets and thinking that people will still engage. What about all the people that have contacted many of us to say, you know what, I just don't bother going to town anymore? That wouldn't be untrue. I don't know how untrue, but we can't confirm that because no one's actually done the numbers. So we are risking significant income deficit to our overall budget by making this decision. And I actually feel that that is quite difficult to agree to. The other thing I have a problem with is that we talk that I love this assessment where we talk about on average the parks are only used 60% of the time and so forth. But should we be judging by an average use or should we be looking at peak use? Because there are plenty of times when you cannot get a car park and then you can't engage because you have to go somewhere else. So that is a net loss. And that will only come through loss of economic activity. We don't judge this, we don't measure this, we don't look at Pillar 4. So there are lots of problems with this. And I also find it quite disingenuous to say, well, we've got the Centre Point car park just nearby. How far, here's a question for you, how far is Mole Street from the Centre Point car park? How many metres? Can I have that answer, please? Should be part of the assessment.
Sorry, would anyone like to answer that?
I think, Lord Mayor, I don't have my measuring capacity at the moment, so I'd have to take that one on notice.
But wouldn't that have been a reasonable part of your assessment in this?
30 seconds, Alderman.
I will need 2 more minutes, thank you.
Moved by Alderman Zuko, second by Councillor Dutta. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously.
Thank you. So I have a problem with the fact that if you can't get a car park near Mole Street, don't worry, walk 400 metres, I'm guessing, to the car park all the way down there. Too bad if you're on a walking frame. Too bad if you have ability with walking at all. You're not going to be able to do it. And Centrelink is in this area, and a lot of people who are retired and pensioners actually use this area. They are now going to be quite disenfranchised with this, aren't they? Leads to me another point too, termination points of travelling. A car park actually is effectively the beginning and the ending of engagement with the city, which means that we're removing 59 points of engagement and we're not replacing with anything else. 59 points. And we're going to say, go somewhere else, go 400 metres away elsewhere, don't worry about it, because that's what we're going to do. And then on top of which you say, but we're going to have all these bike people and they're going to replace it. But you know what? The other day I attempted to do a media release with the council in North Hobart, and I thought, fabulous, I'll use my e-scooter. But I couldn't use my e-scooter when I planned out and mapped my route because there was nowhere to park my e-scooter. So if I did the media release in North Hobart, I was going to risk having it stolen. So I couldn't do that. I had to use a car. It was the only safe way I could do it. And whilst there's mention of replacement bike and scooter parking, there is actually no numbers, no positions, nothing to tell me where that will happen. And it's not good enough to say, well, you're going to risk losing all the money from these parks, losing accessibility from all these car parks, but we're not going to replace it because we're not going to tell you. And I'm sorry, that is something that I think is actually I'm quite a risk averse to that. I feel it is not very sensible. The other thing is that I'd also come up with the idea as well with why two lanes? Why not one? We have plenty of wide streets And when I looked out and measured, I saw we could happily have protected lane, 1 lane in Collins Street, and then 1 lane in another street just nearby. It would work. We wouldn't lose car parking, we wouldn't lose amenity to a small business, and we could actually, for the first time, have a transport plan that looks at pillar number 4, small business support engagement. This is what a CBD is about, surely. And why the hell are we not doing it?
I've got a
Deputy Lord
question.
Mayor.
Sorry, just a few questions. Just through you, Chair, to the relevant individual, can you just tell me the City of Hobart parking occupancy data, the weekday average occupancy between Mole and Murray Street?
Mr Vidal.
Yeah, through your Lord Mayor. Yeah, through your Lord Mayor. For Collins Street, it's 59% is the average. I think the question was also raised around what's the maximum. We should be looking at maximum 79% in this block.
So sorry, just to reiterate, the weekday occupancy highest rate in Harrington to Murray Street those blocks is 79%. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Just one more question as well. The weekday peak occupancy, what is that? The percentage there when we're talking about a percentage?
So yeah, through you, Lord Mayor. So what we mean by that is, weekday peak being, at what hour? We measure it by hour of the day, and it's measured between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. So which hour block during that 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. did we have the highest, most vehicles in different spaces? And that's the way we measure that. Yeah. So I think for example, I think that later in the afternoon you have a higher occupancy in that part of the city, yes.
So just to reiterate, your report did in fact look at weekday peak occupancy, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, yes.
Councillor Dutta.
I have a few questions. Question number 1, was this brought to the workshop? And if it was, were these objections raised or issues raised in the workshop? Question 1.
Who would like to answer that? Mr Noy?
Yes, Lord Mayor, certainly it was part of a workshop. I'm not sure the specifics of those questions.
Just a follow-up question, but we had opportunities to bring these issues up in the workshop.
If I may, so yes, we did have a workshop on this. We did have a number of, I think, 6 or 7 questions raised in that workshop. The next day we then sent an email out to all elected members through the EM bulletin, I guess clarifying those and sort of seeking further feedback. I think all of those were sort of resolved through that process. So no, there weren't any sort of additional after that.
Question number 2. Will there be any parking for disabled people, disabled parking or seniors parking provided in this area?
Through you, Lord Mayor. That's a good question. So as part of this project, one of the core principles is to increase the DDA accessible parking bays. We've been working closely with the Accessible Access Committee to try and locate what the most appropriate locations are. And so we're negotiating or consulting with them. At this stage, we've managed to double the amount of DDA accessible parking bays as part of this project. For seniors as well, we're looking at Centrepoint and allocating specific parks within Centrepoint on the ground floor for senior card holders or seniors, and also mums with prams is the other thing we're looking at. But that'll be part of the detailed design process.
Thank you. And the final question, why 24 months and not 12 months, the trial period?
My apologies. Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
I understand that this trial period is for 24 months. Why 24 months and not 6 months or 12 months?
Through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, good question. So 24 months, we know obviously you need to give it a time for people to bed down behaviour. We know that it takes people sort of 3 to 6 months to sort of change their behaviour. We've got different seasons, winter, summer, so on. We want to give this enough time for people to evolve and change, and if they are interested in taking up the bike or redirect their behaviour elsewhere, that has time to bed down. So that's why 24 months, that's considered best practice.
Thank you.
Councillor Posselt.
Lord Mayor, just a question in light of Alderman Bloomfield's commentary. She referenced the distance to Centrepoint car park from Mole Street. I was just wondering if there's been any opportunities that we've identified as a city for increased parking at the Mole Street end of Collins Street in the recent past?
Yeah, through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, to answer that specific question. So we actually, as recently over the last couple of weeks, we've been able to install 7 new car spaces, 1 hour and 2 hour spaces on Mole Street, just near Collins Street. So we're always looking at taking up the opportunity where it allows to allow for this off-street car parking locations, mindful of, that this could be a way to sort of offset some of that need. We've got an answer to the question 2 raised by Alderman Bloomfield around distance. It's 580 metres between the top of Mole Street at the Rivulet and Centre Point Car Park.
I've got another question, Lord Mayor. Just one more question, sorry. When this was written in the consultation engagement process, if there was any, how many small businesses are there from that point A to B, and how many did you make contact with and seek their opinion with regards to this?
Yeah, through you, Lord Mayor. So yes, we have door-knocked businesses between Mole Street and Murray Street along Collins Street. We've done that over the past few weeks. We've been engaging with some 2 or 3 times around this. They range from business operators to business owners to some property owners as well. And we've started obviously going through this process, and we'll go through this in more detail over the next coming months leading up to the decision. So yes.
Thank you. Lord Mayor, I just want to make a number of points. Point number 1 is that this goes back not when Councillor Kitsos came into council, but it goes back to 210, the Guild report. So we've been at it, and this, as we've been reminded, is the final recommendation that is going to come into play. So it goes back many, many years. Point number 1. Point number 2, when you look at it, it is my understanding from what I've heard that it is not simply a tripartite that was mentioned by Councillor Passant, but there are more people involved in this. So it's not just the central, the Hobart City Plan, etc., etc. But it is interesting to note that the government has been party to this, and this satisfies some of the objections and concerns raised. Point number 3, what is interesting for me is this, that there has been quite a detailed, as it were, consultation and engagement with people. And the final point that I want to make is this, that I was concerned with regards to people who are disabled, who are physically not able to, but I'm satisfied that there will be provisions made, and that's taken into account. So that is quite satisfying. And to finish off with, I think having gone through the workshop where we are able to critically look at things, ask questions, get our doubts satisfied or answered, and having heard the responses given by staff, I'm quite satisfied to support this particular item tonight. Thank you.
Sorry, I just have a question. We talk a lot about how we've talked to small business and engaged with them. There's no table of their responses, wishes, needs and ideas. Why don't we have anything like that to understand what the true needs and wishes of this important part of our community?
Through you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, good question. So what we will do is part of the stakeholder and community engagement report, which we'll bring to council as part of the next stage. That will be a fully sort of comprehensive report, which will include feedback we've received from businesses across the spectrum of Collins Street between Mole and Murray.
Question, if I may, Lord Mayor. Anyone who was at the workshop, I was at the workshop. Anyone who can remember the statement I made? Could someone actually answer whether or not I made this statement, please, at the workshop? That the property owners and business owners be directly consulted. Anyone answer that for me, please?
Yes, you said that.
Okay, thank you. I would like to say this first up. I don't support the bikeway as it is. There's no buts about it. I didn't support Campbell Street, and there were no buts about it. What I find here is we are definitely putting the cart before the horse, because 1.1 says it very clearly. The report seeks endorsement from Council to proceed with the detailed design and with further communications and engagement for the Collins Street Bikeway. To my point of view, is we want to proceed and spend all the dollars to do X before we go and speak to the people who it's going to be affected. I did ask very clearly, very, very clearly at that workshop, that one of the biggest problems we do is we want to do something. We've got some draft plans at the moment. They are the plans we should be going to the business people and talking about. We don't need detailed design plans because they are the ones that are affected. So we've got enough to actually do consultation. So we don't have to tonight proceed with detailed design because we haven't done the consultation process. So I'm sorry. We're here for the community. Of course we're here for the community. I like to think that we trialled something at Salamanca. We did, 12 months. Did it affect any car parks? What fundamental changes did the trial at Salamanca do? Nothing other than the businesses had some music in front of them. Did we trial the scooters? We did for 12 months. And I was totally against them when we had all hell that broke loose. And I still wonder whether or not we're doing things that help the city there. There was another point raised which I think is very, very, very valid, and this is the whole thing, and the reasons why I asked some questions from my esteemed colleague is, you know, the full circle bike lanes. You could probably, most likely, as mentioned by another elected member, is have Collins Street not as badly affected by having one lane in Collins Street and one lane in another street. That there has a lesser impact on that one street. Okay, we talk it's 580 metres from Mole Street to Centre Point. To me, it's like I'm going to park at North Hobart to go and dine in Moona, because people just don't do that. In this area here, this is a specific targeted area of businesses. People that are in businesses have got to understand that. If I park in Centre Point, I'm not going to be walking up to Mole Street. It's a reality. But then, now I want to get to the point raised, because the question was asked about, were concerns raised at the workshop? I raised concerns, serious concerns about consultation with the businesses that are going to be affected in the area. I raised them, and all I've had since is complaint after complaint from businesses. Now, we all received this email tonight from a business that's been there 35 years, David Johnson and Associates. All of us received it, and I have to read it. And I want an extension of time until I finish reading it.
Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Data. 2 minutes.
I am writing to express our deep concern and disappointment regarding the proposed Collins Street Bikeway project in Hobart, Tasmania, as well as the incredibly short notice provided for community input on this matter. The decision to implement a major infrastructure project such as a bikeway on Collins Street requires careful consideration and thorough consultation with the affected community. We were visited unannounced 2 weeks ago and highlighted a proposed design. So they've got a proposed design. We don't need a detailed design. And asked for our input and concerns. However, the limited time frame provided for residents and businesses to respond to this proposal undermines the principles of transparency, inclusivity and democratic decision making. As a business of Hobart for 35 years, we strongly believe that meaningful community engagement is essential for the success of urban development initiative by involving ratepayers, residents and businesses alike in the decision-making processes from the outset. We are not doing that here. We can ensure that concerns, preferences and perspectives of all stakeholders are taken into account, and that the resulting infrastructure project reflects the needs of businesses community, not just a small minority. Unfortunately, the short notice provided the businesses in this precinct to respond to the Collins Street bikeway proposal has hindered our ability to provide informed feedback and contribute meaningfully to the decision-making process. Many residents and businesses, ourselves included, feel blindsided by the sudden detail of the project and are deeply frustrated by the lack of opportunity to voice our concerns, suggestions in a timely manner. Furthermore, the rushed timeline for community input raises questions about the transparency and accountability of the decision-making process surrounding this project. Businesses deserve to have their access to the relevant information and adequate timeframe to review and assess the proposed plans before being asked to provide feedback for support. A few simple points on our second meeting with Ruby on Thursday, the 23rd of May. Parking, loss of 64 car parks, decreased accessibility for customers. The ability for parking directly affects the businesses in the precinct. Look, I won't continue on because it goes on, and I don't want to bore anybody because you've got that email. Everyone's got that email.
I don't think so. I can't find it.
Right.
Just 1 second. I'll just give me a moment.
Seconds.
Yeah, it's gone to. It says it's gone to all the elected members. So that's what I've got here. Lord Mayor, this is the cart before the horse. 1.1 clearly points that out. I know we all want to dream about having it. There's no problem. But let's do the consultation process with the plans that we have now, with the affected businesses before we go out and spend any more funds, because to my point of view, a 2-year trial means we're going to put it in and we're going to leave it there.
Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a question to the relevant staff member. Are we going out for consultation after this decision tonight, and will that consultation involve detailed plans and the chance for businesses in the area to provide dedicated feedback, which will then be provided to the council for the final decision?
Through you, Lord Mayor. Yes. So that's the intention. We've done so, already with the concept plans. But as we continue to build those concept plans and land on that detail, we will take into consideration the input from businesses along Collins Street and other users as well.
Alderman Bloomfield.
Questions. We've talked quite a lot about the parking percentage of use of that area, but I did have a question about the assessment for that. Was that assessment done before or after the parking was removed on Macquarie Street? Because that would be quite substantially different.
Through you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, it was done before, because that was obviously only done 4 weeks ago. Yes.
Okay. So frankly, it has to be incorrect because, as you said prior, that if they've lost all that parking in that street.
You're getting into debate now, so you can only ask questions.
So wouldn't it now be quite profoundly inaccurate? Is my question, given it was done before.
Would it be accurate?
We still believe the data to be accurate. I mean, the changes on Macquarie Street particularly are, there's clearways as well. We've actually installed some additional parking on Mole Street to offset some of that removal, as well as additional parking on some of the other streets along that come off Macquarie Street, Ispahan Avenue and those. So we believe that the measure for those have been offset by its own replacement, if that makes sense.
I have one question left, and that is, we talk about consultation, we talk about the impact of small businesses and their say has on this. So my question is, if every small business interviewed in this area says, no, this is a terrible idea, will they genuinely have an impact on this?
That's probably being drawn into the debate, I think, Mr. Vidal. I don't think that's an appropriate question for staff, really. Oh, Mr. Knight.
Well, I think that's a matter for the elected members. Ultimately, it will be the elected members that make the determination as to proceed or not, based on the facts presented.
Okay. Further discussion? Any further discussion? Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm a bit disappointed with Councillor Posselt that I wasn't mentioned in the roll call honour of bike fans, fans of bike lanes. I mean, I've been riding bikes in Hobart now for 45 years, driving cars for 40 odd years, heavy machinery and the like. I know very well how traffic flows and works in cars, vehicles, walking and all of that. Look, I'm just looking at some facts here, and just a bit of a few dot points I've written down here. We're removing 59 of our on-street parks. We currently have Argyle and Campbell trialling, which is a major change to the whole traffic setup in Hobart. There's currently a transport strategy which is to be done and completed and presented, which overarches everything that we look at with traffic, bikes, pedestrians, etc. I am concerned that recent business bankruptcies, is in the press the other day, are significantly up. First time, more so in the last 20 years, I believe. Retail shop vacancies are up. There are a large number of concerned people who've expressed their views. I don't totally agree that bikes are totally safe. So I think that's not quite right. I ride a bike, I support them, but they are, to quote that bikes are totally safe. Some of the implementations I've seen with this new Argyle Street system where passengers exit their cars straight on to a busy lane are extremely dangerous. It's concerning. I'm not sold. Centrepoint, to quote Centrepoint car park is just a straight swap. It's just a total furphy. People want on-street car parking to go in and out of shops. That's the lifeblood for small businesses. So it's just total furphy, I think, that, and a cop-out to say that, well, Centrepoint's going to solve all that. Using this percentage of occupancy rates, once again, it's not quite accurate. Cinemas, for instance, if you took the amount of seats that were used ever and a percentage of that, you'd only have half the cinemas. But you need the cinemas to be there for the peak times. Like airlines, you could, if you looked at their occupancy rates, ticket sales and seats, you'd slash half the fleet of airlines. But they need them there for the peak times. That's how the system works. I'm concerned that we haven't been given figures of the loss of revenue, and has that been factored into our budget? No real information on that. I've listened to the business owners such as David Johnson and John Donovan, who put some very, very compelling questions to this whole cause. We seem to have taken little notice of what happened in North Hobart, a total running over the traders, no consultation. Hundreds of thousands of dollars was spent in putting parking meters in against the very strong advice of the traders, ultimately ripped out at more money that cost it. We're still, there's a lot of traders still have council, you know, they lack the confidence in some of these strategies the council are doing with transport. Look, I move that amendment to this, that before any decision is made on this, that a detailed feedback and study is done with all businesses. I understand, for instance, that Fuller's and Artery have not been even approached, speaking to those people. So that's the amendment I put up, Lord Mayor.
For the amendment.
Lord Mayor, just a point of clarity. If I would say that's a foreshadowed motion. I'm sorry, I'm just foreshadowed motion because it's actually negating what you're proposing here. That's the way I take it, but I'm no expert.
Just working through it, sorry, Lord Mayor. I mean, so I assume, Councillor Kelly, you're talking about an amendment because you've got item 1 which talks about the communications and engagement being carried out. You're looking specifically for a focus around businesses and is what you talked about then. So
Yes, CR, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, that certainly can be added as a separate, to provide more clarity to point 1. That's certainly an amendment. So
yeah.
Without
okay,
the detailed
second. No, we're not
designs.
going to discuss it over the floor. Is there a seconder for this amendment?
Everybody's spoken, haven't they?
Can I just ask a question through you to Councillor Kelly, if you wouldn't mind? I just need some clarification on the amendment, that's all. Could Councillor Kelly firstly just read out the amendment again, please? And secondly, does the amendment include that the council endorse the concept plan?
My amendment is that before the plan is endorsed, that thorough consultation and feedback is sought from the business owners.
Lord Mayor, I would say that it's a procedure.
That's a foreshadow.
That's a foreshadow.
Yeah.
Changes the whole motion.
Because you're suggesting that the council not endorse the concept plan.
That's correct.
So you're foreshadowing that if this motion doesn't get up, then you'll be in motion. Okay. Further discussion? No further discussion? I might just say a few words. I just wanted to say that I think what's happening right around the country, if you are visiting capital cities in the last couple of years, you will see that cycle lanes, safe cycle lanes are going in everywhere. And they're going in with the support of councils, with the significant investment of state governments of all colours, political colours, and they're always challenging to put in because some businesses object to them. So what we're experiencing here is not unusual, but the reason that they proceed is that process of change that happens is one that initially people and businesses on the ground will naturally feel a sense of it's different, you know, there's a car park that maybe that's the whole reason my business got that particular sale. You know, I can totally understand why businesses have some concerns, but the overwhelming experience of where these have gone in around Australia is that this process of change is something that people adapt to, and that just because someone arrives in a car doesn't make them a better customer, doesn't mean that more customers arrive by car than arrive by other ways. Customers arrive by foot, they arrive by bike, they come from hotels, they come from workplaces at lunchtime, they're parked miles away from where the shop is. There are so many reasons that people come to a shop, and having a car park outside is not necessarily the main reason for that particular interaction. So I just don't think there's a lot of fear and a lot of assumptions about the importance of car parking right on the street to businesses. But I think the experience that we're seeing, particularly from capital cities around the country, is that there's an even greater importance that is the safety of our streets and making room on our streets for all types of vehicles. So cars, of course, we'll always make room for cars. There's still thousands and hundreds of car parks within this vicinity. So there is plenty of space for cars. Cars are not being blocked out of these areas. They are being still welcomed into these areas. There will still be car parking spaces. There will be more DDA spaces. But what we're doing is we're sharing the space. Mm-hmm. We're learning how to share and sharing the space with other vehicle users. And these people are not a minority group. That business suggesting that that people who choose to ride bikes in our city are a minority group. No, they're not. In fact, the most recent state government data shows that there were 3,300 journeys by bike in our municipality each day. So these are 3,300 people on bikes. They're not a minority group. That's getting, there are, you know, that's a significant percentage of the total journeys within our municipality each day. So these are, and with safe separated cycleways, the journeys by bike are likely to increase. So I think this is a really great project, and not just because of bike lanes, but I'm really excited to see pedestrian crossings in Collins and Victoria Street. I'm really be thrilled to see that little hub of cafes on the corner of Harrington and Collins Street get a real lift with a shared outdoor dining area. I think it'll make this street a really vibrant, people-centred street. There will be change, and I'm sorry, but we probably won't get 100% of businesses behind this project. But we have to make decisions about what change is right for a whole range of people, and the businesses are stakeholders, but they're not the only stakeholders. The people who travel around our city and who live in our city and want to travel and have a choice to travel by a different vehicle are also important to consider in the design and the decisions we make for the city. Thank you. Okay, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no.
No.
Show of hands, all those in favour.
Dutta, Pselt, Kitsos, Lohberger, Harvey, the Deputy and the Lord Mayor.
And against?
Zuko, Elliott, Coates, Bloomfield. Kelly, sorry.
Okay, we'll move on now to item number 11, which is the Central Hobart Implementation Plan. Would someone like to move that? Moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. Any discussion? Alderman Bloomfield.
Yep. I was concerned, this covers CBD, and yet there was only one small paragraph on page 30 that even mentioned the, again, I guess tonight is Pillar 4 night. So I would like to think that small business engagement, supporting and encouraging small business engagement, particularly in light of, as mentioned by Alderman Zuko earlier, insolvencies and difficult trading circumstances, that we should probably be pushing a little harder in this area.
Any further discussion? No? I might just say a few words because I think this is a really important project that we're reaching a significant milestone for. So just particularly for new elected members, the Central Hobart Plan is a really important first for Hobart and also for Tasmania. It came out of the city's very robust and passionate debate about height limits, which started through a proposal for a 120-metre building, which ironically is sort of actually not in this Central Hobart Plan area. But out of that debate, it became this council and working with the state government made it clear that while clarifying height limits and setting height limits was a really important thing that the community wanted us to do, it wasn't the only thing we needed to consider for the future of our Central Hobart area. And so what was agreed was the council would work with the state government to develop a more sophisticated, forward-looking strategic plan for the city. The state government actually provided some funding for the work, and it was really the first time that a council and the state government collaborated on a strategic plan for a CBD with a plan of a 20-year plus horizon. So the goal of the plan is to drive a really exciting transformation of the 64 blocks of Central Hobart over the next 20 years. So this is a blueprint for the next 20 years. If it works, it will see change in many areas, and it'll provide space for more people to live in Central Hobart, as well as trying to encourage innovative new businesses to provide for new growth industries and new jobs. So I'm really pleased that we've now got an implementation plan, so that it's not just a plan that sits on the shelf, that we have an implementation plan. I really hope that we do secure the federal funding that's been applied for, because that's all about identifying which parts of the CBD are the best sites for development of medium density housing, and that funding, federal funding, will be a really key part to drive this implementation if we can secure that. I'm also really pleased to read that we're getting moving on the planning scheme amendments, so that we put this plan into our rule book, so then it has longevity well beyond this council and becomes part of our planning rule book for the next 20 years at least. So I'm also really excited to see in the implementation plan the focus on the innovation zone. This is the biggest of the 5 zones in our plan, and the one with the most potential for us to see a really significant transformation. So it is approximately 18 blocks between Burnett Street, the Brooker and Bathurst Street. And I hope that we can, through this plan and the work of the staff, the hardworking staff in our future Hobart team, they can really help the transition of this area from what is currently a pretty unremarkable nondescript part of Hobart in some ways. It's warehouses and car yards, and over time, and it's not going to happen immediately, create a really dynamic and well-designed place to live and work. Like any plan, the implementation of it is the key, and with this document we are giving our staff some guidance about the things that we'd like them to do to implement this plan, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the work happen over the next few years and seeing this part of Hobart really thrive and change. Thank you for your work.
Well, Lord Mayor, just to focus on Councillor Bloomfield's comments about it not supporting or not enough emphasis on small business and that, there is quite a number of things in the plan that talks about business, the nighttime economy, attract key industries, startups, creative industries, encourage, attract, continue to support specialised retail and start-up businesses, identify key industries and employers suited to the central Hobart environment, and develop strategies to attract them, support the establishment of business and creative industries, incubators. There's a whole lot of items in this that I think addresses business and small business in the strategy. So to suggest that it doesn't, I disagree with that. Can I just get a follow-up from one of the officers to see how much emphasis there is on attracting business? Is that something someone could talk to for a minute? Oh, go on, don't sigh so.
Yeah, sorry, Lord Mayor. Look, I think in terms of the broader plan, most definitely. In terms of the implementation plan, I mean, I think there are a number of elements there that we want to provide a focus on areas where we de-risk for business, including small business, the planning approval process. So we want to put in place a regulatory framework that makes it easier for business to undertake the redevelopment that we would all like to see. So that's the focus.
Doug, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried. Oh,
that was the Central Hobart Implementation Plan? Yeah, no.
All those in favour, hands up.
Dutta, Passelt, Kitsos, Lohberger, Harvey, the Deputy and the Mayor.
And against?
Zuko, Elliott, Coates, Bloomfield. And Kelly. I'll keep you.
Alrighty. Item 12 is Stormwater Management Policy for Development. Moved by Councillor Lohberg, seconded by Councillor Passelt. Any discussion on this stormwater policy, Councillor Lohberger?
I just did want to speak on it briefly, Lord Mayor. This is the area that I work in at the Council. I just want to thank the staff for bringing this forward. It's an important document, and we do need to get on top of stormwater, obviously, as an issue, given the effects of climate change in particular. I did want to just ask a question through you, Lord Mayor, just about the policy itself. Part 9, it's in attachment A in our attachments. On page 39 of those attachments, we've got part 9, just about developments that are exempt from the stormwater quality management requirements in the policy. And the question just is about part C, which is just suggesting that a subdivision for less than or equal to 5 lots is exempt. Is that correct through you, Lord Mayor?
Maybe.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I might ask Ms Wilson, who's our Manager of Waterways, to answer that question.
Yes, thank you through the Chair. Yes, under the policy that is correct. Obviously at the moment HIPS is, or the interim planning scheme, is the overarching document. And this policy is primarily to get everyone ready for the transition onto the Tasmanian planning scheme. So yes, it is.
So is that, just through you, Lord Mayor, is that because we anticipate that is that because of legislation that already sort of requires this to occur?
That the units be, that many lots be exempt, or that we need a policy?
That many lots be exempt?
No, that was, so I have started this week, and the policy has been underway for quite some time, and that was in there already. I do agree that long term, that's a number I would like reviewed.
Fantastic, thank you. I just would commend the motion to my colleagues before I sit down.
Alderman Bloomfield. Alderman, sorry, Zuko.
Yeah, Lord Mayor, I think there are, in the report, there are 2 sections that actually got me over the line. 2.3, a policy has been developed to provide a consistent, open and transparent way to assess development with regards to stormwater management. Then it goes on to 2.4 to say that council officers have received positive feedback from developers about the implementation of the policy. That to me says that we consulted with the developers, they support the policy before we implement the policy.
Further discussion, Councillor Posselt.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question to the relevant officers through you, Lord Mayor. Similar to Councillor Lohberger's question, actually, but it pertains to Part 9B2. I just wanted to understand the rationale a little bit. The new impervious area is less than 500 metres squared unless a new car park is being created with more than 6 car parking spaces. Does that mean that a development of more than 6 car parks for a parking lot is exempt from the stormwater management policy?
Lord Mayor, no, if you have more than 6 car spaces, you are not exempt. If you have less than 6 car parking spaces, you are, and that's to pick up the hydrocarbon extra load from fuels and things.
Further discussion? Put that, all those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. The quarterly financial report, 31 March. Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Posselt. Any discussion? No discussion.
Just a second, Lord Mayor. Yeah, there is. I'm just trying to find where I. Yeah, just where I. Just a question. It's in regards to loans and investments. All right. There's a loan here, Commonwealth Bank, which goes to 2036. We owe $3 million. Is that correct? 3.83.
Mr. Reynolds is nodding.
3 million, yes, that is correct.
We're paying 6.41% on it, which is at the higher end at the moment because I know, but I think we could overcome it. This is my viewpoint. This is how I'd be operating it. We've got term deposits that are coming to fruition in the next 3 to 6 months. And most of them are all about 3 million, probably receiving about 4.9%. That's a 1.5% earning on our money if we paid it off. have we given thought to potentially, getting it off Peter and paying off Paul, considering we're paying 6.41 and we're getting 4.9, 4.9 back, we're actually gaining 1.6%. Yeah, question.
Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you for the question. We would have to look at the break fees associated with getting out of that. It was a loan that was entered into when there was a high interest rate environment, and you're seeing that through there. It may not be as simple though as just suggesting there's a balance of $3 million to be paid out, because the bank that we borrowed from would have factored in receipt of it at a higher level, and they would impose a break fee on us. But we could investigate what the cost of exiting that loan would be.
Look, I just had a small amendment, Lord Mayor, that that should it be viable for the council to pay this loan out, considering that we've got funds available through term deposits, we pay it out at the appropriate time. In other words, it could be 12 months, 6 months, 8 months, 2 years, 3 years. So at the appropriate time, the officers go down that track. Delegated to the general manager, right? So in other words, the general manager take it on board.
Yeah, well, we can do that without a motion.
Can you?
Yeah, we can actually come back to, definitely.
But it has to come back to us. All I'm saying is just go ahead and do it. That's the point I'm getting at. Because if we can be saving 1.6% on $3 million, it's money, could pay for something else. That's all I'd like to say, Lord Mayor. Instead of the officers coming back and saying, well, it's going to take us 3 years before we can do it on a break even, when the appropriate time comes, they just go ahead and do it. That way we pay it off.
CEO would like to speak.
Yep, sorry.
Certainly, we can take that question, and the answer is yes, we can certainly investigate it, and if it makes sense, we can certainly enact that. But we will certainly talk to the council about it.
Okay.
I think, can I just note, I think if I'm right, because this comes up every time we talk about loans, is this the loan that was taken out for Bicentennial Park?
That's correct.
In 2006?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I think it's been investigated before.
Yeah, there is a time frame that sort of...
Keeps him. Okay.
Well, sorry, Lord Mayor, I didn't really speak. I asked the question. Look, all I'm getting at is there's always that time frame, and you say to yourself, okay, we might have to pay it out, and that's the payout, so you're fine. But when you look at it over a period of time, it probably saves you a lot of money. That's the whole thing. So,
yeah. I remember Councillor Sexton put this forward a number of years ago, and we looked at it. It wasn't at that point where we could benefit from it.
Maybe it is now, yeah. Okay, so the CEO's can take that on notice and have a look at it. Alderman Bloomfield.
I remember some years ago when I was watching council intently before I was elected, there was actually a decision made not to take the most competitive loan deal at the time. And I think we are seeing the benefit of that now with a higher than competitive rate with significant loans. I would like to know what is the cost that we are giving away each year by paying this higher percentage rate on a significant loan versus a standard competitive rate, and are we being financially astute with this? It's a lot of money, and if we're not actually ensuring that we've got the best rate for our loans at these values, we are literally giving away, my estimation, enough to pay a few wages, and I think that's something quite material.
So Alderman Bloomfield, your question's quite broad. Is there a particular
Well, I was really just saying, we're paying, what was already mentioned, a higher than standard market competitive rate for our loans. I do believe sincerely we should be examining that to ensure that we are being intelligent with the choices that we've made, because even with the break loan fee, if you refinance at a better rate, you'll probably still come ahead at these values. That is if Alderman Zuko's potential choice of actually paying one out to the other, which is also viable, depending on working capital requirements, which I suspect is what we're talking about here with those term deposits. But realistically, I think the question is, are we being very financially astute with these decisions? And I would like something that comes back to actually supplement or inform us that we are being appropriate.
I'll get the CEO to answer that question because it's quite broad.
No, I understand you're asked a more detailed analysis. And it's really a follow-up question to Alderman Zuko's, really, to get that level of detail in terms of come back to council so you understand what is actually, you know, the facts of that line and that surrounding it. So I certainly we can do that, and we will.
Also, Lord Mayor, if that's the case, some of these are intergenerational loans, so that they were taken out in order that future generations could also contribute to the asset or whatever it is. So if we're going to do a report on this, then that needs to be calculated in as well. And some of these loans are, it's only one really that's high, and the others are probably lower than what we're earning at the moment.
Can we talk about one?
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that it's great to see the council's debt coming down. Like Alderman Bloomfield, that was something I was watching before I was elected, and I think it was in the mid $60 million mark, down towards 40 now, which is great. I just have a question around the forecast full year result, 5.1.4, the reduction in parking fines due to parking system outages, a forecast reduction of $1.5 million in parking fines. I just wanted to make sure or check the status of that outage. Is that, I guess it's more of a parking question given the financial implications, but is that outage, are those issues in hand, and is that part of the sensor upgrade stuff?
Davey.
Through you, Lord Mayor, there is a combination of factors. It is partly to do with the sensor rollout. There have been some technical problems over the year. They are all in hand, and we're doing our best to resolve them as quickly as possible.
Okay, all right. It's just quite powerful to see, you know, the real life impact on our bottom line of parking, the revenue it brings in, not only in on-street and off-street fees, but also fines. Yeah.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 14 is 2024-25 fees and charges. Moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Sherlock, Deputy Lord Mayor. Discussion, Councillor Elliott.
Just have a question, please, around the new fees, around information requests. Do we have, and I support the existence of these new fees and support the principle around providing access, simplifying access to information, but do we have a policy governing those new fees?
Look, the answer to that is no. That is a body of work we want to undertake, but I mean, as you can see, in the proposed new fees, there's a gap in the market, if you will, where we want to simplify the flow of information to the public on public records, and this is the first step of a broader piece of work.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Personally, I don't feel comfortable supporting those new fees without the policy being in place, and I would suggest to elected members, and if the mover and the seconder would be happy, to approve the remaining fees with the and hold over those information request fees, because we really need to have the policy in place and make sure that we understand the principles around how those fees are going to apply. For example, what's the definition of something that's complex, and is it per application or per hour? I think there's just questions to answer, because I would hate for us to implementing new fees when we're not clear on those policy answers, and then find ourselves in a position where we're being criticised for them. So I think it's prudent to hold over the information request fees and bring that back to council at another date with the accompanying policy.
What page are those fees on?
Page 64 of 158 in the supporting documents, or page 64 at the top right.
Just a question to the CEO or Manager of Legal and Governance, or whoever is appropriate. Through you, Lord Mayor, what would be the consequences of holding over those fees, and when is the anticipated policy going to be able to come before Council? And indeed, would it be a policy that would come before Council?
Yeah.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Certainly doable. We can bring it forward to the next council meeting. There's already been some work done on it. There isn't a policy developed, but there certainly was a justification and rationale for the introduction of the fees that was put to the executive. Obviously, council would like to see more information about that. We can certainly provide that, and really it wouldn't be any impediment to us to do that and bring this set of fees forward to the next council meeting.
Yeah, okay, look, I'm happy to support that. Yep. I'm happy to carry those ones over to the next meeting with the policy position.
Sorry, is that an amendment? Who moved that?
I'll just move it, that those be carried over, those ones, to do with those particular fees, information
Second,
requests.
happy with that?
By another month is not going to be a problem, you've said, CEO? Who was the seconder?
Me.
Oh, hi. There you go.
Alright. Any further discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 15, procurement quotation exemption report. Moved by Councillor Posselt, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. Zuko.
I just have a question, Lord Mayor. I did this many years ago, probably Councillor Harvey would recall, about doing business with locals, Tasmanians. Do we? I can't remember what our policy is at the moment on whether or not we have a policy on how we target our Tasmanian businesses, and do we have a percentage factor? I just can't remember if we do or we don't. I can't remember the percentage factor because I remember pushing it years ago, and Councillor Harvey remembers that.
Mr Reynolds, did you want to respond?
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. There is, when we're evaluating tenders and the like, an element that relates to local business activity. From my memory, it's 10% of the evaluation factor.
But not on quotes?
It's when we evaluate quotes received, and through a tender process, it is a factor taking.
Yeah, but again, you're seeking here exemptions for tendering, but quotes are the same. Do we put in the factor of a quote? If we're just going out to get 3 quotes, right, and the 3 quotes come in, one of them's Tasmanian, and the other 2 come from Siberia, right? Do we factor in anything from Tasmania there?
No, through your Lord Mayor, generally in those situations, it's just based on the value of the quote.
Yeah, Lord Mayor, I'm just wondering whether or not the CEO could give consideration to approving this, but coming back with the potential that we look at even quotes of over $50,000 that we give preference to Tasmanian
Not
business.
but weighting.
Sorry?
I think you've got to be weighting towards it, so they may be rubbish, but
yeah,
like that 10% weighting.
Whatever. What I'm saying is, come back. I'm not talking about dollars or percentages. Come back with a potential option on how we could go down the track of also giving weight to Tasmanian businesses, whatever it is. But a further report, that's all. So.
Look, listen, it's timely. Certainly councils bring their procurement policy to council, on a frequent basis, so maybe it's timely to have a look at that specific matter. So it's certainly something that councils do typically, so I'm happy to take that on.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Any say no. Carried unanimously. Item 16 is a motion from Deputy Lord Mayor.
I was fully aware.
Alderman Zuko has to leave. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'm sure the motion is relatively self-explanatory, but I did want to focus on the fact that signing the Menopause Workplace Pledge is really about committing to and recognising that menopause can be an issue in the workplace, and making a commitment to openly, positively and respectfully talk about menopause, which incorporates actively supporting and informing our employees, and of course carries over into elected members who are affected by menopause. The Department of State Growth has, as part of its Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Action Plan of 2023, stated that by June 2023 it would become a menopause-ready workplace, and I'm of the opinion that the Hobart City Council as an employer may want to take this path as well. The motion is there of the things that I consider that I'd like your support behind, and it was also discussed in 2023 that the current Australian government had supported a motion for a Senate inquiry into the effects of menopause. Workplace challenges due to menopausal symptoms and perhaps the inability to openly discuss it at different ages and stages of life may impact productivity, employee engagement and feelings of belonging. I've also highlighted raising the awareness in culturally and linguistically diverse communities, and I have highlighted the New South Wales perimenopause and menopause toolkit. I'm also encouraged to read that the administrative response highlights the research from the McKinsey Health Institute and World Economic Forum, which notes the disparities in mental health support, especially for those from marginalised backgrounds. And they also noted that there could be additional programs to be delivered through interactive workshops, webinars, building leader and first aider wellness capability, and all those other aspects that have been noted there in the administrative advice. Put the motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thanks. I need a seconder for Deputy Councillor Posselt. I think your hand was up first. Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I normally try to speak to motions where I have personal knowledge and expertise. I'll be first to admit that I don't on this particular one. However, I do know a group that do. The Healthy Hobart Committee is meeting next week. There's a whole lot of people there who are really passionate about topics such as this, and we do have experts who have lived experience, and we have experts who take a real passion in policies in this area. And I'm reminded when I looked at the About information page about the portfolio committees, about how they are there to help us and help advise us and talk through policies before council. Obviously it's just advice, they're not there to guide us, and this is a decision that at the end will remain for our council alone, but I guess I would seek a deferral for a month, because this is a really good opportunity for us to provide those community members who have dedicated their time and given up their expertise and links to the community to actually have a little bit of an input and discuss this. And I think there's some really good stuff in there. I think the officer's response when you read it is positive. This is definitely something that we can do as an organisation and take a lead on. But I think that there is also an opportunity, and look, it's good fortune that next Tuesday is when the Healthy Hobart Committee meets. And this will be a real opportunity to be able to broaden that community engagement. And I thank the Deputy Mayor for bringing this on. But I guess I'd be opportunistic here and just say, look, if we defer this to next month, it provides an opportunity for the Healthy Hobart Committee to be able to have a real discussion around this and give us their advice and their input and their expertise. I'm not an expert in menopause, but we went to the community and said, people who have an interest and an understanding and expertise in health and health policy, please come and join our committee so that you can provide your input and advice to us as a council. And to my mind, this is a really good opportunity for those people to do that. So, look, I would seek to move a deferral.
Seconder for deferral motion, Councillor Elliott.
Just for one, or whatever it is, 4 weeks until the, I don't know the date, I think it's 22nd of June. So.
Procedural motion. All those in favour say aye. And say no.
No.
Show of hands. All those in favour.
Coates, Elliott, Bloomfield, Kelly.
Against.
Dutta, Posselt, Kitsos, Lohberger, Harvey, the Deputy, and
so that's carried, and the CEO just mentioned something that I might ask him to pass on.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'd suggest where there's a recommendation from the officers that this be formed part of a broader integrated wellness program, I think perhaps we could talk to that integrated wellness program and what that might mean at that committee of your, next week. I think that would be really a helpful thing to do. So.
Sorry, I've got Councillor Lohberger standing up.
Just wanted to ask a question, I guess, of the mover and the seconder. Would they just be willing to accept as a third point that it be referred to the Healthy Hobart Committee?
We've already voted on it, Councillor Lohberger, but I think it'll be...
Did we vote on the deferral or the...
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Yeah, and I don't think it was passed. So,
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
For discussions.
I think from what the CEO's already said, I think it's already going to be incorporated into that and can be something that, I mean, I used to be co-chair of the Healthy Committee as well, and so I understand, I understand totally what you're saying and take that on board and take on board what the CEO has said, and that it can go to that to be discussed as part of the suite of things with wellbeing. So thank you for that advice.
So it'll go there anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Chair.
All right, so Councillor Dutta.
I have two questions, Lord Mayor. The question number one is this, what is this workplace pledge? What does it mean? And the second question is that the champion be nominated. Can we have some explanation?
So the workplace pledge, as I mentioned at the outset in my introduction, is to commit to recognising that menopause can be an issue in the workplace and making a commitment to openly, positively and respectfully talk about menopause, which incorporates actively supporting and informing our employees and elected members affected by the menopause. That's the pledge that we make as a workplace. And
the nominated champion. So is there someone?
Yes, sorry, CEO. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, no, so that one will rest with me, and I think we would engage our staff around that. And I do like the idea of this being part of an integrated wellness program. And there's also new leave provisions around menopause, for instance, that's being discussed right now around our enterprise agreement. So I think all of that can factor into a program where we do have interested staff that can become that champion or champions as part of that more integrated wellness program, and can talk further to that at the portfolio committee meeting next week.
And the final question, can this, or do we have a policy with regards to can this later be developed into a policy?
Policy for?
With regards to this particular matter and other matters relating to wellness? Or do we have a policy that incorporates this already?
CEO?
I guess it would be it's documents like the enterprise agreement, our employee code of practice, those type of things that sort of cover off the way that business and people interact within the workplace. I do think though the integrated wellness program is an opportunity to do what you're saying there and have a specific policy or focus on that as part of a broader focus around wellbeing and health. So we can look to develop that. And as I say, the current enterprise agreement does have specific leave provisions around menopause and other health-related or life-related issues. So.
Okay, Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I feel as the youngest member of council of the opposite gender that I do think it's important just to say very briefly how important this is and how misunderstood menopause is generally. I know some people find it difficult talking about these topics, and I thank the Deputy Lord Mayor for bringing forward what is, as I said, a topic that people do find difficult to discuss. But menopause is a huge change in a woman's life, and some of the symptoms do affect the workplace. Some of the symptoms that people who might be watching this, who are 30-something men, may have no idea that anxiety, problems sleeping, hot flushes and night sweats are all part of menopause, and that they can affect your performance the next day. Women of a certain age may struggle to even front up to work because of the psychological impact of menopause. And being able to talk about these things really does make a difference. Having come from a trauma-informed workplace, it's really important that we as elected members can comfortably speak about menopause, that we can say the word menopause, and that we can at least provide empathy to staff and indeed those people in the community. Because don't forget that more than 50% of the population are female, so likely more than 50% of the population will experience this at some time. So I think we need to put our big boy pants on in this case and recognise the importance of this and speak openly about problems such as this. And I do again commend the Deputy Lord Mayor for bringing this. I support it with vigour.
find it quite bizarre that once again that the bulk of the discussion tonight has been by men about something that actually only affects women. And that in fact the indicators are we're being told what to think by men on something that only affects women. And frankly, I don't particularly want to discuss my nether regions in this room. I don't particularly feel that most women, in fact any woman that I have spoken to of an age greater than 50 was actually quite appalled that this was going to be tonight's discussion, because it's private and it should stay private. It is a discussion one has with a GP, and like any other medical condition, what we tend to do is we get a direction from our GP who then we then take that to HR, who generally is responsible enough and empathetic enough to then supply us an environment that we can work within. I don't need to be told by a bunch of men or anybody else what my medical or non-medical or anything else about my age, defining me as somewhat lesser contributing this room, should be even here. I think it's appalling, and I am absolutely stunned that we have to even be discussing this. This is a council. We should be discussing actual council issues, and I am furious that this is even here.
Further discussion, Councillor Elliott. Talking about menopause, I've been through menopause once already and I get to go through it again, and it sucks. Chemo-induced menopause, and it wasn't fun. But I agree with Alderman Bloomfield that I don't think this is part of our role. I think it absolutely steps into the operational territory. I think we should definitely have a strong health and wellbeing program for our staff. I think we should have flexible arrangements around accommodating whatever people have got on. But I worry about the precedent this sets, because there's so many other conditions and life events and medical conditions. I'm wondering, next month are we going to have diverticulitis and then aneurysms? Are we going to have the arthritis champion? Are we going to have the go-getter of gout? Are we going to have, like, it just could go on. It's and I also find it troubling where the council kind of steps out of what I think its role is, facilitating support and advice sessions. Our role, I think, as an employer is to make sure that we have the policies and arrangements in place so that people are able to look after their health and wellbeing. Our role as an employer isn't to have menopause champions and to be signing pledges, which, let's be honest, none of this stuff achieves things other than like media release and headlines occasionally, or a Facebook post. It doesn't actually achieve anything real impact for the workforce. So the main reason I won't be supporting this is because I'm worried about the precedents, because there are so many other conditions and illnesses, and it would be a ever-growing list of champions. Any further discussion? Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Lord Mayor, to the appropriate person, has there been any incidents of any issues, as the motion says, in the workplace relating to menopause in the City of Hobart? Or statistics or anything like that?
I think it's a bit hard to answer unless Mr Reynolds, you probably don't.
I'm not aware of it. It's obviously a private matter for the individual who's been involved, but I'm not aware of us keeping statistics on that.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, Deputy Lord Mayor, do you want to sum up at all?
Sure.
You've got 2 minutes on that to sum up.
Thank you very much. Can I just start off with a question before my time starts? Did you say that this could be included as part of EAP agreements?
So there's a proposal for specific leave for menopause that's being considered as part of the enterprise agreement at the moment. I don't believe it's in our agreement as it currently stands, but it's something that is being proposed for the current agreement that's being negotiated.
So as part of those enterprise agreements, are you discussing other health issues that people may have that constitutes part of the ones that have been said tonight?
Reynolds?
There have been a lot of claims put by various parties to the enterprise agreement. Gender affirmation, for example, is one if you'd like to classify that as a medical issue. Great,
thank you very much for that. Honestly, I didn't realise that this was going to cause this much controversy, to be honest. I don't actually think that we're discussing somebody's nether regions, to quote unquote. These are actually changes that occur in the body, various different symptoms, various different things that go on within the body. So I don't think it's specific to the nether region. I would like to highlight that this is about us pledging to do something as a workplace that is already obviously highlighted that we're going to consider as part of the EAP. It's something that individuals can talk about, also go and have a discussion about it. I'm almost speechless with some of the commentary. And that's really a rare thing, to have me speechless. I'll say. Yeah, I'm kind of a little bit disappointed by some of the comments, and I think some of the community members who I've had discussions with around this particular issue would likewise be disappointed about some of the comments that have been made. I do hope that the majority of my colleagues support this. It is an important issue.
30 seconds. And
it is an issue that the current Australian government had supported a motion for, a Senate inquiry into the effects of menopause. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Just a question, Lord Mayor, if I could.
Yeah.
Sorry, just something coming back for after I spoke. Just a question: if this is an ambit claim that's been received as part of enterprise negotiations, if we vote for this now, does that potentially prejudice?
CEO or Mr. Reynolds?
Thanks. No, look, this isn't part of the enterprise agreement negotiations. So again, it's I think, as I say, the likely direction of this is into an integrated wellness program, which is, we have health and wellbeing programs now. I guess it's a specific focus around other things where there may be gaps. So no, in answer to your question, I don't think it would prejudice that.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Show of hands. All those in favour.
Dutta, Pselt, Coates, Kidsos, Lohberger, Harvey, the Deputy and the Mayor.
And against?
I'm showing Elliott, Bloomfield and Kelly. I'm not going to miss Councillor Kelly.
Okay, we'll move on to item 17, which Councillor Elliott, did you want to move this?
I actually won't be moving this. I'm going to let this one lapse. I had conversations with the Director of Local Government on Friday, and all of these wish list is going to be met. So I'm going to let it lapse.
Okay. Item 18 is the Elizabeth Street Mall information booth.
Yes, with this one, I'm asking for a report to come back to Council because I'm talking about the information booth in Elizabeth Street that I keep an eye on whenever I go into the city, and the reason this has come about is because the booth is pretty much constantly vacant, and I asked questions a couple of months ago through the system as to what's happening there, because I'm acutely aware of we have a space that's underutilised. I think it is appropriate that we examine why it's not being used, and I understand it's related to a safety issue, some staff intimidation, which I can see how that could be real antisocial behaviour and one staff member in the information booth. But I know that further work is happening, so I'm asking for a report that captures the officers' views on that and asking for the Council's support, because from my perspective, it's really important that all of our assets are delivering for the community and delivering for the Council. So with that sitting vacant, that information booth, it obviously reflects poorly on us in terms of a customer experience point of view and branding for the city. From a safety perspective as well, it's more, it's safer for us to have assets and buildings occupied in that case rather than sitting empty. And there's also potentially the option for the booth to be, perhaps slightly remodelled and actually provided for commercial lease, maybe to a pop-up business or something like that. There's the florist up the other end of the mall, some sort of micro business. So, yeah, like I said, it's asking for a report to come back to council because I think we've got a really good asset there. Having it vacant reflects poorly on our reputation, and I think there's much more we can do with it, and I think we need to bring a solution to a head. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor, seconder for this. So seconder, Councillor Coates.
Yep.
Councillor Coates.
Thank you. Look, very quickly on this. Look, I welcome it. I think it makes sense. I just note that getting rid of this booth, it doesn't stop council from actually doing stuff in that space. You know, some of you might know we had a smoking cessation temporary pop-up. You can still do temporary activation. So if it's a, you know, City of Hobart's on or something, you want to do a temporary information booth, you still can. So I think it does make sense. I fundamentally agree with the reasons as to why they're calling for the report, and yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. So,
Councillor Lohberger.
I just had a quick question, Chair. I'm not sure who it's for. Just the staff response says that there was an internal stakeholder group scheduled to meet last Thursday on the 23rd, just about this issue, I guess. Are we able to hear what might have happened in that meeting?
Yes, through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, the project group did meet last week and certainly discussed a lot of the content of what's in the proposal, as well as some of the ideas that they've explored before with TASPOL and different things. So suffice to say, all options are on the table. Yes, that's it.
Okay, so just through you, Chair, one more. The report will be in there. Okay. I assume there's going to be a number of more meetings after this.
Through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, that's correct.
Right, thank you.
So thank you, Lord Mayor. So I understand from the response from the administration that there will be a report with regards to this matter.
Yes, through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, that's correct.
So if there is a report coming, will this then make it redundant?
I see ya.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Look, I think the motion gives some other things that need to be considered as part of the review, so I think it's certainly welcome, and it can inform the team that's already working on it to look at other things that, as we've just heard, nothing's off the table, so I think it's useful to give it some more credibility.
Councillor Posselt.
Thank you. Just a question, whether or not part of the work that has been undertaken examines whether or not that building should stay in the mall. I'll ask the question and then I'll provide commentary.
Through you, Lord Mayor, I did ask that question today. It is a permanent structure, not easily moved, is what I've been advised. So we're certainly looking at it still being there at this stage, and just obviously improving that usage.
Thank you. Look, I would probably seek to include an amendment to this that the discussions include the options and benefits or otherwise of removal. I think that sometimes in the built environment we get trapped into this, oh well, it's a structure that we've built and therefore we have to use it, but it actually really splits up the mall quite badly. I genuinely don't know the answer, but the idea that a placemaking activity could be undertaken there rather than a commercial entity may yield better results for the community. I don't know what that would look like, but I'd certainly like to put it on the table for the officers to consider whether or not removal is appropriate. And I guess before I move that amendment, I'd ask the CEO if they can just take that as feedback and advice, or whether or not you'd like a formal amendment to this.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Now, look, clearly antisocial activities are an issue that we are looking at. So clearly, as we've heard earlier, that nothing's off the table. So I do think, in addition to examining commercial opportunities, the flip side of that is looking at examining whether it stays. So I don't think an amendment's required. I think we're going to look at that anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just a little bit confused from the advice that we've received that this was already discussed on the 23rd of May and that the bulk of what's already in this motion is already being addressed. So I'm just wondering if in light of that, perhaps the mover of the motion would like to withdraw the motion because it's already in train.
CEO was asked that question before. And
No, sorry, I'm just asking you.
no, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Dutta.
Yes. Lord Mayor, looking at the motion is very simple. It simply says to look at the future use of the Elizabeth Mall, including examining the feasibility of this asset being offered for commercial lease. Now, I'm sure that the administration response would take that into account now that we have mentioned. I don't think we need a motion to take all that in because it's already in place. The process has already been placed by the staff. They know the situation, they know the issues in there, and whatever we have said, they will take that on board and put that in the report. So I don't see that this is really achieving anything. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott, did you want to sum up at all?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Say no.
Oh.
Show of hands. All those in favour?
Elliott, Purcell, Coates, Lowberger, Bloomfield, Kelly. Is there anything more hands around here? No.
And
hands up. Deputy Lord, yeah?
no. And against?
Dutta, Kitsos, Harvey, Deputy and the Mayor.
That's carried. Move on to the next motion, which is 19. Breastfeeding is welcome everywhere. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Again, the motion is pretty self-explanatory. It's an initiative of the Australian Breastfeeding Association, and it's a program that we can be involved in as the Hobart.
Councillor Harvey, sorry.
As the Hobart City Council, and also encourage other businesses to be involved as well. This program is a local, simple, no-fuss way to contribute broad-scale education and inclusion of breastfeeding women and parents, and therefore to the enhancement of family-friendly, inclusive, welcoming and healthy communities. The program sparks an opportunity for conversations to educate venue staff about breastfeeding in public, and I'm delighted to read as part of the administrative advice that officers have identified that resources can be displayed in the city's publicly accessible building